I'm here with Charles Heller of JPFO, and we're going to talk about what's going on in Israel. And oh, by the way, why should we care? Hello again, everybody out there with Iowa Firearms Coalition and beyond. I've got a special guest today. Charles Heller is with us, and we'd like to talk with him real quick, basically about what's going on overseas. But first, I want to go over who Charles is and who he represents. Can you run down through your list of accolades? You've got a long acumen. Let's hear it.
I'm the communications coordinator currently for JPFO. Been involved with JPFO for about 12 years, since a little bit after the passing of Aaron Zellman of blessed memory, the founder of JPFO. I was executive director for 2.5 years and then stepped down from that position, and I took a volunteer position as its communications coordinator for purposes exactly like this, because I knew that you were going to call someday. And I have in the previous to that, I am the co-founder in 2005 of the Arizona Citizens Defense League with 3 other guys. And I am also the host of Liberty Watch and America Armed and Free Radio in Tucson on KVOI, now in my 25th year of broadcasting and I have the only right to keep and bear arms program that covers things with a muzzle, a nozzle, or a blade. Anything from lots of firearm shows, technical shows, right to keep and bear arms shows, and including things having to do with NASA, like the hypersonic space body, and just things that I'm fantastically interested in, that I hope my enthusiasm will drag others into.
Fantastic. Now, for those of you out there who don't know, we rattled off that acronym pretty quickly, JPFO. So this is Jews for the Preservation of Firearm Ownership. Am I correct about that?
Yes, founded in 1989 by Aaron Zellman of blessed memory.
Okay. So I think that there's a tremendous disconnect on what's going on, or what has gone on in Israel in years past. How should I put this, Charles? What daily life is like for the purposes of carrying a self-defense tool like a weapon, firearm specifically, and what people. Let me back up. There's a disconnect between what it is and what they think it is. I have seen for years little motivational posters, memes, whatever else, go out with attractive young men and women standing around with Galils and Uzis, and that being a beacon of firearm ownership. Those things are circulated around, and they don't adequately tell the story. Now, I will tell you, for the other day when they had the supposed International Day of Jihad, I was ready. And I was ready in a lot of ways. So whether it's a Israeli Galil, or whether, Charles, I was using my Israeli Uzi, it doesn't make any difference. I was ready, and I wanted to use something straight from Israel just because. But I will tell you this. When we move past the humor and we bring it back down to a very core level, I would like to understand. I would like for everybody listening and viewing to understand what gun control is and isn't in Israel versus what it's like here, what the differences are, and why we should be paying close attention to that. Can we delve into that?
We can. I am lightly familiar with it, but I'm not specifically familiar with it. In order to easily get a gun permit, you have to be involved either in the reserves, or you have to be a home guard police officer or something like that. Other than that, it's difficult. Although they've made it easier lately, it's difficult to get a permit to carry a gun in Israel, and especially hard to get a handgun permit. Furthermore, the amount of ammo you can purchase a year was restricted to 50 rounds a year. It's now been doubled to 100 rounds a year. So, I guess if I lived in Israel, I would own a lot of air guns that are replicas of the guns I carried, and that's what I would practice with, because that's what I do today. Air guns, I own an air gun in a replica of every gun I own. I own an air gun because it's 64 cents per 100 rounds currently. And those prices to me are just too Jewish.
Okay. Well, I think that I appreciate knowing that. That's actually a really good idea that some
Yeah.
people should be considering, because the truth of the matter is it can be very expensive and cost prohibitive to go out and train the way that we would prefer. Now, I don't think there's anybody who would argue that you truly need to train the way you intend to fight or make every effort towards that. But there are things that you can do that cost a little bit less, that help with that muscle memory and keep some of those skills retained.
I
Or
will
the
tell you,
retention.
I will tell you another thing that I think, as an instructor for 30 years now, certified by my state to teach the Arizona concealed weapons class, tell you another mistake people make in dry fire practice. And that's, they take their gun, they safely unload it, they keep their ammunition in another room, they take a target that with a backstop that wouldn't matter if you oopsed it and shot it at the backstop inside your home. It would just cause maybe some dirty underwear, but nothing, no other damage. And then they teach themselves to draw and pull the trigger every time they do. That's a mistake in training. You should, only half the time you take a gun out of the holster should you actually, even at the range, if you're practicing, should you actually pull the trigger. The rest of the time you should look around a lot and then put it back in your holster, because you don't train yourself that if I take this gun out of the holster, I'm going to shoot. Maybe it's real close, but it's a no shoot. And if you train yourself to shoot every time, you may produce a stress reaction that's not optimal.
We have a chairman, John McLaughlin, has a story about that. He's an instructor as well, and he drew with the purposes of having to fire his weapon. But he paid really close attention. He was studied, and it's an interesting story. But the short version is, if you get into a habit, you should be careful that that habit doesn't come to fruition. So
Right.
I agree with that. That's an interesting point.
If I may, I don't understand people who have a curiosity about what it would be like to do harm to another. I don't train people like that. I don't associate with people like that. If I find out someone has that ideation, I break my association with them. I'm not interested. The reason I carry is because I hate violence. So anyway,
I think that most people don't think through that. I've had people walk up to me and ask me questions about that. They know who I am. I live in a small town, and you can't escape being known a little bit. You know what I mean? So Charles, they'll come up and they'll say, "Well, why do you do this? Why do you do that?" And I'm like, "Well, I think that I'm logically one of the safest people you'll ever meet, because I don't seek any kind of interaction that's negative, and I quickly depart from those that are." Well, they're like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Well, every interaction that I get into is an armed conflict, because I'm always armed. So what does that do for me? Every time I see trouble, I get my family and I get away from it. I don't seek to run into those scenarios if it isn't warranted, and I don't look for trouble because I'd rather not be in it. So what the responsibility of gun ownership has taught me is basically to behave well in all circumstances and avoid conflict. And I don't think that the people who don't carry can grasp that, because they're not thinking through that. They've never had to.
they're like the man without a fire extinguisher in the car. They don't know
Yeah.
what's going. They have no concept of what's going to happen if they encounter a fire. That said, even though I have a very competent fire extinguisher, I do not drive around looking for burning buildings.
No,
I,
I
it's
agree.
just
I
not.
agree.
It's just not one of my. It's not one of my on my bucket list. So
Well, what we're seeing overseas is horrific. What we're seeing locally is some of the responses are baffling. It seems to me most people are overwhelmingly in support of Israel. What we're seeing happen with a stated eradication of Jews, and so and I don't think that you can say that it's anything besides that, not truthfully. Yes, I would imagine there are probably very few overall that seem to think that the beheading of babies and the raping of women and invading other countries and laying waste to people just for the purposes of doing it is somehow okay. But I will tell you, I'm a little disappointed in what I'm seeing locally and abroad, and it emphasizes an individual responsibility to take care of oneself if you can. And we see all kinds of people now saying, "Oh, we should be able to carry. They should loosen their restrictions in Israel so all these things can happen." Well, yes, you're right. And oh, by the way, in most of the states in the United States, most areas, you can and should utilize this basic civil right, this human right. So, what do you have to say about something like that? What if if I was to ask you, Charles, what would you tell somebody who was on the fence or that was considering what was going on here, and you had 1 minute to convince them? What would you try and put across to them?
I would say that you own your own result. That you're on your own, and you own your own results. We have a book called Dial 911 and Die. It's for sale at JPFO.org, and it explains to you why the Supreme Court has been saying since 1981 the police are under no obligation to protect you. Knowing that, it is now you must now assume the mantle of responsibility for your own defense. Therefore, yo-yo and you're on your own, and you own your own results. I think that's about 60 seconds.
Well, it's correct. I asked for a brief synopsis of what people need to consider, and I thank you for that. That's what we're looking for. There are tons and tons of people watching this, Charles, that are already in our camp. They're already on our side of whatever we want to call this, an argument, debate, I don't know. But they identify and understand. It's the other folks out there who are waking up, or at least questioning, which is healthy. Hey, I don't know if I've been thinking about this right, or I see these things and I can't put my finger on it, but it just doesn't jive, because I'm not a complete idiot. And what these people are saying that they believe is self-evident is not self-evident to me, and it doesn't appear to be true. And so they're exploring some new ideas, and I want to be able to say, well, here's what I would like for you to consider. And this is the vein in which we're offering it. And that kind of thing is exactly what we're looking for, Charles. Thank you. Is there anything else that we should be talking about right now that we can put across?
You can never achieve a level of safety by disarming the victims.
Right.
There is no level or there is no leap forward. There is no achievement by trying to lessen the amount of defensive equipment in a society, because the guns require human responsible agency. For that matter, so does the baseball bat, and of course the evil semi-automatic baseball bat. It's just the point is that none of those are going to injure someone without someone using it. And it doesn't matter how many rounds it has in it. It doesn't matter what its mechanism type is. There is no level of safety you can achieve by limiting things, as opposed to trying to combat bad behavior, i.e., when someone is a bad actor. And most of the people who almost all the people who commit serious felonies, it's not their first time.
Right.
And if we would go after the people who do evil and address that evil, we would have a much safer society. Yeah. Unfortunately, there's a big part of our society that wants to let everybody loose and let them off the hook for what they do wrong, and try and reduce felonies to misdemeanors. And for people who are truly bad, that helps bad people achieve their result.
Yes. You know, it's interesting when we talk about this, we've made this argument before. I know I've mentioned it to many people, but if you really think about what gun control advocates are saying, and most of them probably don't even realize this rather, because I'm pretty sure they don't actually think through their argument. It doesn't appear that way. What they're really saying is they're not trying to take something from you, Charles. They don't want to take it for the purposes of having it. So they're not trying to steal your car or take your money or grab your home. They're not trying to grab something tangible or take something from you that they want. They just don't want you to have it. Right. And when you think about that mindset and what has to be present, if we're Socratic in our method about this, if we say if then, premise, conclusion, you get to some really bad places when you apply that to what they're thinking, because they're saying, I am totally uncomfortable with myself. I can't wrap my mind around this. Therefore, I don't want you to attain it or to have it or to be able to use it. So what they're really saying is that eventually they're not really afraid of me. They're afraid of themselves. I think that that's really what that boils down to if we chase it far enough. And if these people are afraid of themselves, they should not be in positions of power to control you and I.
Well, no one should be in a position of power to control you and I, frankly. But it reminds me of the old John Belushi routine on Saturday Night Live, where on the man's ship, a manly ship, when they say punish me, no punish me, what they want to do is punish themselves, have themselves punished by punishing vicariously by punishing you. You're right, though. They don't look at it as a punishment, but it is but what they advocate is a taking in the true constitutional sense.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
So,
all right. Well, I appreciate your time today. Thank you very much. Are there any parting words or things that we need to get out to people that they need to ponder and consider? Any action items?
well, JPFO has a lot of really great material. In truth, we are not an activist organization. We're a publisher. We're a C3, not a C4. And you know the difference between C3 and C4. The C4 blows up much better. We're a C3. But the point is, though, that if you want to be a member of JPFO, it's $30 a year. You do not have to be Jewish to join, but it couldn't hurt. Anyway, it's we do a lot of great research. We publish a lot of things. We have a newsletter called The Sentinel. And if you want to be more informed, get on our website, jpfo.org, sign up for our alerts. And if you want to be a mensch about it, join.
Fantastic. Thank you for your time. Also, if you need us to pop on the radio show, or if there's any context there that we can help offer, we'd love to help in terms of reciprocity on that level too. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. And if you'd like to be on my radio program, you should look me up, libertywatchradio.com. Look on the recent shows tab. The last 6 months of my program are archived there for people who'd like to listen. And I don't have anything to sell you, but if you guys would like to be in Iowa, I'd like to be on my program, I'd love to have you on, and we can have an interesting and frank discussion about this.
Oh yes, looking forward to it. One more time, there was a little garble there for a second, so it was libertywatch.com.
No, libertywatchradio.com.
Okay, Liberty Watch Radio.
.com and jpfo.org on the for JPFO. Would you do me a favor? Send me this recording so I can spread it around to JPFO.
Fantastic. Charles, thank you very much. We appreciate your time, appreciate the message and the thoughts. Let's work together in the future.
From your lips to God's ears. Have a blessed day.
And you.